Hello again, students. So here I came back with a new lesson. So we are still working on unit number 8, and today we move on to a vocabulary lesson. Today's lesson will be about concession links. Concession links, or linking words that we use to express concession. Concession. So can you observe this picture with me? I have two people and they are having a picnic, and here we have a cloudy sky and they have an umbrella, and it means that there is rain. So normally when there is rain we don't go on a picnic, but here it was raining heavily. Nevertheless, we went on a picnic. It was raining heavily. Nevertheless, or but, we went on a picnic. So the linking word nevertheless is used to express concession. So concession, we can say it is a kind of contrast. Even though there is some difference, but we can say that it is a kind of contrast in certain contexts. Okay? So here it was raining heavily. Nevertheless, we went on a picnic. We can replace nevertheless with yet or however, like in the following examples. The test was very challenging, it means very difficult, yet all the students got good marks. The test was very challenging, yet or nevertheless or however, all the students got good marks. Emily was very ill. However, she doesn't want to stay at home. So normally somebody who is ill, he would like to stay at home and relax. But here, Emily was very ill. However, or yet, or nevertheless, she doesn't want to stay at home. So nevertheless, yet, and however are linking words we can use to express concession. Now there is still another group of linking words that have the same function, which is concession. So what are they? Although, in spite of, despite. Although, in spite of, despite. So let's see how do we use these three linking words to express concession. So before I show you the examples, I have here a picture of a man. I wonder if you know who is he. He is a famous Egyptian writer. He's Egyptian. So yes, that's Taha Hussein. Taha Hussein is a very famous Egyptian writer. And what is special about him? He doesn't have the ability to see. It means he was blind. He was blind. So blind, it means he can't see. He can't see. So although Taha Hussein was blind, he became a famous writer. Although Taha Hussein was blind, he became a famous writer. Normally somebody who is blind, it is almost impossible for him to be a famous writer. But here, although Taha Hussein was blind, he became a famous writer. Although. We can replace although with in spite of or despite. Let's see. But there is a slight difference between them. Taha Hussein became a famous writer despite his blindness. Blind is an adjective, blindness is a noun. So what is the difference between using although and despite? Although is followed by a subject, a verb, and a complement. It means it is followed by a complete sentence. Whereas despite is followed by a noun, or we call this, look here, we have a possessive adjective and we have a noun. This is a noun phrase. Call it noun phrase. So although is followed by a sentence, subject, verb, complement, whereas despite should be followed by a noun phrase. Now what about in spite of? Taha Hussein became a famous writer in spite of his blindness. You see, here it is in spite of is used similarly as despite. It is followed by a noun phrase too. Or it can be followed by verb ing. What do we call this form? Great. It's a gerund. So Taha Hussein became a famous writer in spite of being blind. In spite of being blind. So in spite of can be followed by a noun phrase or a gerund. Now let's summarize this in a chart. So when we use the linking word although should be followed by what? Great. Subject, verb, and complement. So although Taha Hussein was blind, he became a famous writer. Now if you want to use despite should be followed by what? Noun or noun phrase. So despite his blindness, Taha Hussein became a famous writer. What about in spite of? In spite of can be followed by two different structures. Do you remember what are they? Great. They can be followed by a noun or noun phrase, or also by a gerund. That's it. So in spite of his blindness, Taha Hussein became a famous writer. Or in spite of being blind, Taha Hussein became a famous writer. Great. Now let's practice this in a simple exercise. Fill in the blanks with although, despite, or in spite of. Jalal refuses to stay at home, having a bad flu. So Jalal has a bad flu, but he refused to stay at home. So here we need to express concession using one of these words. So which one you think is the best? Just observe the structure that comes after the linking word, having, gerund. Great. So it's in spite of. So Jalal refuses to stay at home in spite of having a bad flu, because in spite of it can be followed by a gerund. Students continue to study. Schools are closed because of the coronavirus pandemic. Normally when we have a pandemic and schools are closed, students don't continue to study. But here students continue to study. Schools are closed because of the coronavirus pandemic. So here schools are closed. Subject, verb, and complement. Great. It's although. So students continue to study although schools are closed because of the coronavirus pandemic. Now Mr. Wilson still practices sport early in the morning. His old age. So he is old and he still practices sport. See? So here we have a noun phrase. Noun phrase is a passive adjective plus a noun. We call this a noun phrase. So which one? Great. So if you use despite is correct, in spite of is correct too, because both of them can be followed by a noun phrase. So Mr. Wilson practices sport early in the morning despite or in spite of his old age. Thank you.